My next guest is one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. He mastered the art of turning his pain into pleasure and always staying starving for more. A seven-time Mr. Olympia winner who found his competitive edge and dominated the stage for 17 years. Now he's a successful entrepreneur and motivational speaker, continuing to inspire millions every day. I welcome Phil Heath to the show. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
I know it's kind of early, so I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk with me here. 7 Olympias. Wow. How do you stay motivated all of those years?
To be quite honest, understanding that with those titles come with a lot of high expectations, and then knowing that they exist, I decided to put even greater pressure on myself by imagining if I were to win 10 Mr. Olympias, right? And the record being 8, I thought, well, what would a 10-time champion have to do to get that? So I had that thought in my head and said, wow, that's going to take a lot of work. That's going to take a lot of sacrifice. There's going to be no complaining. There's going to be a lot of hardships in the unknown. So therefore, each and every day when something were to happen that wasn't supposedly in my favor, I understood that it was a greater lesson to be learned to achieve that goal later on.
So something I learned from you doing my research is that you had won 5th place at the Olympia and you qualified to go next year. And you said, no, I need more time. And I think in life, we tend to not see the beauty in maybe taking a few steps back in order to take, an immense amount of steps forward. What did that do for you, both physically and mentally, in your career?
Physically, it allowed me much more time to prepare because I just got done playing college basketball in 2002, got involved in amateur bodybuilding in 2003, turning pro in 2005. And in fact, I qualified for the Olympia in 2006 and in 2007. And let me tell you, like the physical part, I thought, well, although I qualified, I'm not going to make much of an impact. And I don't really see any reason to just go there just to go there. Like, I don't want a participation medal, right? I want to make an impact. And in order to do that, I had to be able to remove the ego and say, just because people believe in you, it wasn't about me not believing in myself. It was just like, you just need more time, Phil. Like, give yourself some grace. And my goal wasn't just to blend in. My goal was to stand out. So I also took a lot of heat from the media at that time because they're like, wait a minute, you've qualified now for 2 consecutive years and are you scared? Like, what's going on? So imagine, Ashley, like having to go into the Weider headquarters back in the day and sitting in Joe Weiders' office and trying to explain to him who's paying you actually a nice salary every month.
Yeah.
That you're not going to do a show, and you're like trying to become more of a salesperson for yourself and advocate for what's in your mind. So the good thing is that I had great support. The better thing is that I was able to stick to my values. And third, I was able to willing to do the work. So then when it was time to do the show, I was able to place 3rd in my very first Olympia in 2008.
I know you just mentioned your values. I think every person that I interview, I talk to them about their values, because without that, there's no ground, right? You're not grounded. What would you say your top 3, 5 values are for you that you want to follow every day?
Understanding where you're currently at, like in the present moment, not yesterday or the day before, currently. Are you in a storm today? And if you are, what are you willing to do to get out of it? So that takes a lot of accountability. Second, how you structure your thoughts. What do you tell yourself? We're just watching basketball, like with the Final Four and stuff like that. Like, what do you tell yourself when you're actually on the free throw line? Are you telling yourself you're going to miss? Are you telling yourself you're going to make this thing? And understanding that pressure in the mind is everything. So having to acknowledge that and making it more comfortable to be your authentic self and say like, hey, I declare that I want to be great. Well, okay, then let's do that. So that's a big thing that leads into my standards, which always have to be high. And then understanding that, like I said, you're going to have even adversity, with unknown people in your life. It could be a family member that doesn't understand you. It could be a critic that their whole narrative, their whole existence is to make you look good one day and then trash you the next. So just understanding that you just have to know who you are. And as you proceed to progress, you just have to be flexible and to be able to adapt and not always focusing on reactions, because a reactionary person is someone that is unprepared. If you prepare yourself mentally and emotionally more than anything, I think we're seeing that more now with mental health and stuff like that, because we haven't dealt with the emotions that go on with our goals and just life.
Mhm.
If you're able to understand those things and how you react to certain things, then you can become more calm and say, okay, when this happens, I get triggered to say this. Why do I say this? And let's dig deep. Then you know who the heck you are. And then you're no longer in the reaction moment. You're able to respond to the criticism, respond to the pain, respond to the hardship, much more professional. Because at the end of the day, I'm saying I'm a professional athlete, I'm a professional bodybuilder.
Mm.
How can you be professional when you're quick to react to something, you know?
Exactly. Did you learn that over time? Was that something like a skill that you developed? Because as you mentioned, the media was on you. They went from being nice media to mean media and then having crazy expectations for you. How long did it take you to develop, like, I don't need to give them a reaction. I just need to stay true to myself?
I would probably say right before I won, um, I was able to make a commitment knowing that the magnifying lens is going to increase as you improve. And what does that mean? And I was always asking myself these questions. And for anyone knows, I was raised as an only child, so I was alone a lot with my own thoughts. So I would always ask myself, so why is it that in high school my parents would expect me to get straight A's? It's because they see the potential, right? Why does the coach always ride you? It's because they see the potential. I should see the potential in me and therefore hold myself to standards. So it was definitely from childhood on. It just became more apparent when you're standing up there on stage in your most vulnerable situation, pretty much, physically, and having people who actually don't look like you adjudicate you and understand that it has nothing to do with what they have to say. It has all to do with what you're able to improve on. So instead of saying like, oh, I didn't win, and then cry and bitch and moan and say it's politics, I would say, well, what can I do to improve? And always just trying to think like, is there something I could do better? And then just making peace with it. Like I said, being in that moment and saying, you know what, I'm going to continuously do that. And when the heat did get increased with social media, because I would say I was the first Mr. Olympia to have to endure the transition from magazine production into solely social, digital media, and where everyone has an expert opinion.
Mhm.
I had to remain calm at times, even though I didn't take it initially with grace, because I always thought like, wow, like you're basically talking about my artwork and you're trashing it. Then I realized, you know what, they're just doing their job. How about you just do your job better? And I made it a job to piss them off. So I thought, well, like if Tom Brady or Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, like could just silence the crowd, I treated it like a road game where I could just go in and just wreck shop and become victorious. So instead of being a sore loser or a sore winner, I just wanted to be the best I could be each and every day. And I knew that there was times where maybe um, like I said, the lens, that pressure does get immense because you create such distance between yourself and the other athletes that the judges do look for that minute detail, whereas the other guys, they're like, oh, well, he looks great. It's like, well, what about me? So, like I said, I mean, there was a lot that went on with that, but I always tried to make it calm and just focus, if not double, triple down on my efforts in the gym, because all that mattered was that I would win. That's all that matters, is not second, not third. If I can not just win the Olympia, but how I can win it again and again and again.
You mentioned something interesting, which I talk about all the time, is how media members want to critique you and then they're not in the gym and taking care of themselves. And I think we see this in so many different industries where they want to point the finger and say, oh, well, you missed this free throw, or you didn't hit the game winner, or, you didn't look your best for what we thought you should look on stage. And, I made it a point. I didn't compete at that level or anything, but I did bodybuilding for 2 years just because I wanted to see what it was like to be an athlete, because I'm covering athletes all day, every day. And I'm like, I'm sitting here, you know, getting to know them and what they do and criticizing, but like, what would happen if I actually put my mind and body to that same level? And so I threw my ass in the gym and hired a coach, and I'm meal prepping and I'm going through the motions. And it honestly made me respect athletes to a totally different level where I don't even talk shit anymore. Like if they miss if they miss a shot, I'm understanding that like they can't make every shot, you know?
Right. And yeah, you don't want, and it has to be tough being any type of analyst, right? Last year, I was a commentary, component. I commentated the Olympia, and you're trying to edify the athletes while still giving them constructive criticism.
Mhm.
And my whole thing was, well, I actually did do it, so I have the psyche and the understanding of what needs to improve on. But I think sometimes in other sports, for instance, we see that there is an agenda, and it is ratings, and I understand that that's a component as well. The problem is that very few would even have the guts to do what you did and put yourself out there in an uncomfortable situation, where the diet alone is going to make people crumble.
Mhm.
The exercising along with that is going to make people extremely irritable and insecure. What you learn through that is definitely why you're where you're at right now, is because you can show more empathy while still not coddling people. I think if more, it would be really neat if more analysts actually did try or like hang out with that person for like a half a day just to understand. So what do you eat? Like, what time do you really get up? You know, and the fans do need to understand that. But it's wild these days. Like everybody's got this expert analysis of like why this person didn't come off the screen correctly and plan his feet accordingly and blah 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 blah. Half the time they're watching it from home. If you actually go to a physical game, whether it be football or especially basketball, you realize like those are giants on a basketball court. There is no spacing.
Yeah.
There is no way that they could just run through and jump high and dunk. They're like, why didn't we dunk it? I used to hear this stuff all the time going to games. I'm like, you realize like how difficult that is, how fast everything is. Their mind, their IQ has to be so like it's incredibly stressful, I'm sure. But that's what makes it entertaining at the same time, is to
Mhm.
see those athletes, both men and women, do incredible feats of strength, and more importantly, see how they handle adversity and do it for long periods of time. I'm the one that always wants to understand who has the greatest amount of stamina under pressure, and how they go beyond.
So speaking of that, you had mentioned in one of your interviews that you will watch the film of yourself and you will critique and self-reflect. I think a lot of people also fail at this too, where they don't try to understand their feelings and understand why they did things a certain way and what they can do better. How did that change the way that you approach your life and your career moving forward?
You just become more self-aware. So then you're not waiting 20 years from now when you didn't have the success that you should have. And then you want to do self-reflection. Like we see like documentaries being done of people like 20 years after they're done competing or being an entrepreneur or whatever, and they're having that moment of reflection. Well, why weren't you reflecting in the middle of it? And with social media, it's very smart to do so. I think what happens is that we get so caught up in trying to be perfect on social media. Whereas for me, it's like, well, how about first of all, how about I just start writing out what I'm feeling? Because I know that there is a better neurological response to taking pen to paper, and then getting my words out before I just turn on the phone and, hey guys, it's like that could be fake as hell. So like, how about I just learn how to be still for a minute and collect my thoughts, and know that life has no rehearsal. Give yourself some grace. Understand that if you carry yourself with certain standards, that you have to live by a certain code of conduct and excellence. But you will fail. You will embarrass yourself probably once or twice. But it's all about what you can learn from that. And that's the only way that I want to live. It's the only way I choose to live, is to realize that, like I said, life has no damn rehearsal. And it's all about the adjustments I can make. Just like in sports, a coach is only as good as the adjustments he or she can make for any given moment in time. Same with entrepreneurs. Same thing, with families, parents. Like they have to be able to adjust things when things happen here. they still have to handle things here. So there really is no balance, but we try to balance it the best way we can. And I think it's an incredible journey. You know, this human experience is pretty freaking awesome when you can sit back and be like, wow, I literally was just talking about this with Jay Cutler last night, and we're like, man, the stuff that we would like get heavy anxiety about, or like no more. And it's because you learn through experience how to prepare for those things. So, you know, it's just a journey, you know, and I accept it. And that's easier said than done, you know. It's much easier said than done. But you know, I wouldn't have it any other way, because as long as I'm still breathing, I still realize I have opportunity. I'll be damned if I don't acknowledge also what I have gone through. And that's one of the other things that I used after I won my first Olympia, was to think back at all of the different whys in the road that got me here, and be like, whoa, I went through all that. It was worth it. Now that's just one level, you know, like how can I transfer that into everything else? You know, whether I'm competing or not, it's just the foundational principles that got me here, of resilience and education, and you know, just dealing with the shit, you know, like, and learning now how to communicate better. I think that's the best thing that we're being kind of forced to do. I mean, the people that know how to effectively communicate and listen tend to connect with their audience and create better community and better understanding, even if we have difference of belief. You know, like it's just being able to be within yourself and have courtesy for other people. I love to debate, by the way, but it's like at one point, can it continue to just stay comfortable? Meaning, I don't have to insult you to get my point across, type of thing.
Yep.
I don't have to take away something from you to make myself look good. So I don't have to talk trash about your physique to make mine look better. And you see that in bodybuilding, like nonstop, like this guy looks like shit. And it's like, okay, so you think you're perfect? No. It's just like, how about we just honor each other's strengths? But then at the end of the day, we know who's the best.
Yeah. No, exactly. And you mentioned something too that's really interesting about when you won your first Olympia and you did all the self-reflecting. Do you feel like your first Olympia was harder to get to, or do you think that getting to your seventh, or even your second or third or fourth, like, or was it easier because you kind of knew what you needed to do going into it?
They all have special purpose. You know, going from 2010, where I placed second, to first, that was more of just accepting my calling. I think a lot of the time in life, you know, we all say, well, I'm trying to find my calling. It's like, no, you have to learn to answer it, not just physically, mentally, but also emotionally. You have to know what the weight is to when you say you want a promotion, but have you dealt with the emotional aspect of what that entails? Like all the pressure that comes along with all, well, the pressure is all in your mind, to be quite honest. It's just more of the responsibilities and maybe sacrificing time to do other things that you have to deal with and come to grips with. It's like your life will change, right? So that was part one. Part two was dealing with having to repeat, because you didn't want to be the one hit wonder, you know? And I had added motivation because we were filming Generation Iron. So the last thing you want to do is like lose, and then, you know, you don't want to lose on camera. So there was that. Number three was like, I knew the movie was coming out, so I wanted to look even better, right? And I started feeling more comfortable in that. And I actually did really well, where I only had one call out during Friday night's prejudging, which hasn't been done since like Lee Haney's days in the '88. So that was awesome. But, you know, number four was like, oh gosh, got sick beforehand, wasn't at my best. How do I handle the emotions? Having to learn how to be so good that even on your off day, you're still good enough. And then number five, you know, dealing with, I think it was number four and number five, I was not only, my father had passed, and I was going through divorce, and I was starting a new business at the same time while still traveling the world 200,000 miles a year. So that was very stressful. And then number six, just realizing like, wow, like I'm trying to tie Dorian Yates. Like, what does that really mean, right? Now you're going into the icons of the industry. And then, of course, number 7 held the most weight, I think, because the most iconic figure in bodybuilding is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So knowing that no matter what happens after that, I'm still tied with someone who is mostly recognizable out of any athlete to ever compete. So of course, not getting number 8 sucked, but it also allowed me to understand that there is a limit to my own self while being injured, having having a hernia and having surgery, and knowing the adversity that I had to go through after winning number 7, and then having immediate surgery, deciding that no, I don't want to take a year off, and I just want to see how good I really am, even while I'm hurt, because I think at some point in time you're not afraid. Maybe you are a little cocky, right? But you earn that right. Michael Jordan would have never had the flu game if he wouldn't have tried, right? Brett Favre would have never had that game where he threw like 4 touchdowns, like back to back back after his father died. Like these are stories. So at some point in time, I realized I'm in my own story. Like I'm living out like an incredible story. What if I win? And what can that do? Not just for myself, but what can that do for other people dealing with their own stuff? Because winning Olympia is like something very unrelatable. Going through a divorce, going through a father passing away, a stepmom passing away, going through a business that you started and someone robbed you and tarnished a friendship, all while still trying to be great. Like I can go up to any CEO that's going through a divorce. I can go through any employee that says, "Hey man, like you lost a loved one. Yeah, man, it sucks. But this is some of the things that I did, to try to, help my position." And realize like, although they're not here or that relationship didn't work out, you still recognize what you do have.
Mhm.
And that's an obligation to yourself. That's an obligation to your legacy. That's an obligation to that goal that you said that you had 10 years ago, that I want to be great. You didn't account for the unknown. It was the unknown that's going to make you great. So seeing that and living that makes it all worthwhile today. Because that's what I get to talk to people about. Because like I said, again, uh, relatable topics as far as like bodybuilding to the average person is not going to be there, but hard work, dedication through amounts of stress is. We all deal with stress, we all deal with pain. How can we leverage it? How can we honor ourselves? How can we inspire others? But also how not to be a false prophet and just put on a face for everybody. It's like, no man, like I'm having a really bad day, but I have the ability to still move on. And I would probably say all of us, and yourself included, like we're going to have more than 80% of our days be pretty freaking dope.
Mhm. I
It's
get in my
20%
head.
there.
I get in my head too. Like there's
Yeah.
times where like I overthink. I'm definitely a deep thinker, and I've been this way since I was a little girl. Like even at 5 years old, I'm questioning authority. I'm not trying to like, I'm not letting anyone control me, because I'm like, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do it
Mhm.
your way? Why don't, I'm always questioning things. And I think like being an overthinker does wonders at times, but I think it can also hinder progress as well, because we get so in
Yeah.
our head about
Mhm.
everything where we're just overthinking, and then we can't take that step forward. Has that ever happened to you where you have to just sit with yourself even longer and be like, okay, we need to figure this out?
Absolutely. I mean, it's happened to me even transitioning more into the entrepreneur space of staying in your head too long and recognizing, oh crap, I haven't moved. So you almost have to put like a timer. Like I literally have like a little small timer.
Mhm.
And if I say, hey, for 1 hour, I'm going to read or I'm going to study, I'm going to listen to podcasts, I'm going to do these things. And if that thing buzzes and I haven't moved, that's because I've been stuck. So that means I need to walk around. I need to move my body. I need to get maybe some sun. I live in Florida, like understand, like get some sun, get some movement. Don't scroll on social media. Just, okay, what's going on? You're procrastinating. Knock that off. Let's get back to work. Well, and then it's more like you're trying to be perfect. And I think even with competing, that's what you're trying to do, right? The problem is when you do that, when you transfer that part into every other aspect, you will play the game with tighter sneakers, if you know what I'm saying. It's like playing basketball, they always say you got to be loose, right? But if you play with tight sneakers, you're like, Mr. We've all seen those type of athletes, like they're kind of like robotic,
Mhm.
where they're great practice players, you know, and can't do shit in a game. And it's because like they just can't free themselves. So I always have to, like, I'm the same way. Like I grew up as an only child, so I'm obviously in my head, like, like just doing other things. But then I realized, like, if I haven't got anything done, what are we talking about? Because now I'm hindering my own progress, and I'm not living out my purpose, which is to do great work so that I can help other people. Because the more cool stuff I do, I mean, it allows me opportunities to speak, to act, to get people else out of their own head. But yeah, that you'll get paralyzed in here. Like you and I both could literally sit, because I do it with my wife. Like her and I could just be chilling, no phone, no nothing, and then she'll be like, "We haven't said anything to each other in like 10 freaking minutes. So what are you thinking about?" And you're just like, a ton of stuff, right? And it's like, you thought about all that stuff and you're writing that shit down, or you don't communicate it at all.
Mhm.
So you could have helped this person. What are you going to do with this? So I think, you know, having those limiting beliefs too, being in your head too long, can steal some great opportunities later on in your life. So I'm with you on that. It's like you gotta like set timers, set reminders, like, hey, let's keep moving, let's get pumped up, let's do what we got, whatever works, because we're all different.
I think you said something interesting too, when you're with your wife and you're just in your own thoughts and you're not speaking them out loud. Because I interviewed Chris Bumstead and we talked about something a little bit similar, in a sense where men a lot of times feel the need that they need to bottle their emotions, and they feel as if they're not allowed to openly express how they're feeling because they're supposed to be that tough guy, right? You're supposed to be able to handle all your emotions, and you don't need, you're not weak. You don't need to talk about it.
Right.
You always been super open about your emotions and how you're feeling, or is it something that you had to develop over time?
I had to develop that over time. I was raised in a household where it wasn't like where we would sit down and express ourselves, right? It was just get the job done. And in every other relationship, it wasn't like I just sat down and just talked about things, because there's also some victim mentality that can come from that as well. Because I think sometimes people just do a lot of trauma looping, and trauma bonding in relationships. So yeah, we can vent or whatever, but where's the actionable items that are going along with this talk? So I can't just continually just every day just talk about the same old thing and not get nothing done. There's a lot of that I've seen, and therefore, you know, I just choose not to. But also, some of that stuff I feel like I have to truly just sit with for a while, and make sense of it for myself. The only problem is that when you do it too long and nothing is getting done, it becomes a bigger problem. Like for instance, if I have something that's really bothering me and I don't share it with my wife, how am I supposed to expect her to move around the house around me? You know what I mean? Like if I'm going through it, she needs to know something. Like she may not need to know everything right then and there, but I need to say, hey, babe, like I'm just kind of going through something right now. I'm trying to piece it together. I'll be able to talk to you about it a little, like maybe a day or so. I'm just trying to make it make sense, because I don't have, I may not have the words today to express that. But yeah, guys are really taught to, be tough and don't cry and do these things. And I still believe in that to a degree. I definitely do. I definitely believe that the man is supposed to be, the strength of the home, to a degree. Like I want to be that person, that leader. It doesn't mean that she's any less of a leader either. I think, what was it? The Incredible Hulk always had the one lady in the Avengers to soothe him,
Mhm.
and King Kong, same thing. But my wife, like, she walks shoulder to shoulder with me on a lot of things. So I think the level of intimacy increases when I'm able to effectively communicate to her what I'm feeling in the present moment in time, and maybe say, hey, I don't really feel comfortable right now to go like 2 hours of this, but I'm just letting you know, like right now, like I'm not okay, but I'm getting through it.
Mhm.
So, and it definitely takes the right type of partner as well.
Mhm.
And then knowing that you're not just vomiting your 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 personal stuff, especially like when you first meet someone. It's like the first thing they do after like first or second date, they start vomiting everything that's going on in life. It's like, not today.
Yeah,
Like slow down.
too much.
So it takes time and practice. And look, like I said, I mean, I'm 43. So yeah, I mean, when I was in my early 30s, it was terrible. Like, but like as I gotten older, I've been a lot more chill and just more of an effective communicator, because I have to be, because that's what I do for work too. I have to communicate with an audience. So and it's important that guys know that you can still be strong, you can still be a leader, and still have moments of like, damn, I got hit hard today, man. And not everybody's a crier either. So you don't have to tell people to force that out or stuff like that. Because I see a lot of that online. Like, you need to force that. It's like, no, you don't. You need to handle it the most positive way you can, so that you can keep continuing on while not throwing it under the rug. Like, I still tell people, you still have to go through it. And whatever happens through that moment, like, you still honor yourself, you still treat yourself with dignity and respect, and others around you. But you don't always have to go around it or go above it. You got to go through it sometimes, because that lies like better moments of triumph and wisdom and all that cool shit. But you'll miss like the whole journey if you're just like trying to go around it all the time. Oh, I'll go around it. Like, no, it's still there, dude. Like they say, like you got to stay in the shit. Like, you got to sit in it for a minute and be like, okay, this
We're
sucks,
here.
man. Yeah, I'm gonna get myself out of this. So yeah.
I love that. I love it. I feel like your greatest, like when you're, there's a saying that's like, sometimes when you're going through a breakdown, it's really going to transfer to a breakthrough. And I truly believe that as well. I think it's important to go through shit. And I kind of want to transition back into everything you had to put your body through. I think no one talks about this enough. Like, everyone looks at you on stage, they see the final product, right? But they don't realize what it really takes to go into that, and the emotional roller coaster, the eating, just
Yeah.
constantly in the gym. And I think I saw an interview on your page about making sure that your body is feeling good from the inside out, not just what you're looking at outside, but inside what's going on. And I think in the bodybuilding industry, we see a lot of people get injured, they get sick, where they can't compete anymore. What do we need to do to change that in this industry?
We definitely have to create more awareness to what people are going through, and people have to raise their hands and say, I am not well.
Mm,
And knowing that it's okay to say that I'm not well. It doesn't mean that you suck. It doesn't mean that you're weak. I think a lot of the time is people don't want to say they're hurt because they don't want to lose a sponsorship. No different than like probably some other athletes in other industries. They don't want to, if they could get away with not telling someone that they're hurt, like severely injured or messing with something up here, because it affects their money and they have people that depend on them, right? So you're thinking like, oh, well, I don't really want to tell people that I have a knee injury because, you know, I gotta renegotiate this contract and they're gonna treat me like crap and I need this money. So there's a lot of people that deal with that, but I think first and foremost, they got to be in a safe space to know that, like, hey, look, like, the world is wild. It always has been. It's a little bit different because of how social media is, and we're expecting you to promote constantly, not just yourself, but all the brands that you're associated with. And no, there's no PR. That's the other part. Like, in our industry, there's no like PR. Like, even in the NCAA, like, each school has like a PR department. There's media training that happens at the Division I and even Division II level. Obviously, in sports and even in entertainment, there's media training. I'm sure you've had that. So even in corporations. So with us not having that arm, we're kind of just like winging it. So you don't have people that you can talk to. So you definitely have to, find a good community of people, whether you create one yourself or try to hire someone that you can speak to that is a professional. Just try to get some words to your feelings. And because when you're getting ready for a bodybuilding show or just some type of transformation, you need to deal with the emotional parts of training and eating. What does food mean to you? What does, diet and exercise mean to you? Like, all those things. What are you currently dealing with? Because those things will come up. And then when you make peace with it as to why you're doing it, you can endure a lot of the other pain points that come along with the prep and stuff, like, because then you can foresee, you're like, okay, well, why am I feeling like crap? Well, it's because I'm on 100 grams of carbs and I weigh 250 pounds and I'm doing 2 hours of cardio and 2 hours of weights. Of course I'm going to feel like crap.
yeah.
So it's just understanding the expectations, listing them out. But the problem I see with the most athletes is the pressure with social media. and the lack of income, and the athletes, both men and women, feeling like this is everything I have. Like, and once they start competing professionally, they start leaving out entrepreneurship. Maybe a lot of them should be entrepreneurs, or maybe just be entrepreneurs. Maybe some of them should still work 8 to 5 while still competing. They should figure that out, because the financial stress is really what drives these people insane. Everybody thinks that they could do YouTube and be the next big thing. Everybody believes that, and I'm not saying that they can't, but I mean, it's oversaturated.
Mm.
And now you're seeing a lot of people living in what I would call false bravado, where they're faking it before they make it. And it doesn't do the companies any service either, because they're just treating everybody like a number. Also, so it's a lot that goes on, because I talk to a lot of other athletes and the people that are coming up, and oh, I'm doing my YouTube, oh, I'm doing this, oh, I'm doing that. It's like, man, you'd be probably better off like learning some other skills. And this just happens to be a hobby. This is really a hobby until you start making it a real career. You know what I mean? So, and it's kind of hard to tell people what they should do. It's another thing to just ask them where they're currently at and just try to listen. And then, I'm for one being that person. Like, I tell all the guys and girls on tour, I'm like, hey, look, like, you can DM me and you can ask me questions as to what to expect, or contract negotiations and stuff like that. And I'm starting to develop different courses pertaining to those things, because I can't just say this in front of you and not offer it up. So that's my contribution. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot to unpack, because not just from the amateurs, but to the professional ranks. Like it's a beast. And I'm sure you were able to feel a little bit that when you competed. Like, it's a lot that goes into this. Like, some of the women that you probably went against, like, it was like they're everything.
Hmm. I loved it. It was great, but I didn't have that will to be like, I want to go on the Olympia stage.
Right.
I'm also 5 feet tall and carry a lot of like weight in my legs. And I already know that it would probably have taken like 7 years of like consistent running and just the crazy amount of cardio I would have had to do. I don't mind doing cardio, but I do mind doing 2 hours every single day. I don't got time for that. But
No.
I respect people who do. It's insane.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's, on the women's side along with the men's side, they have to figure out what they're willing to do to get to a certain goal. And there's a certain time period of where you're going to have to sacrifice 1 year, 5 years, 10 years to reach that. What are you going to do? And what are you going to give up? Something is going to die, meaning a relationship or like another career. Something is just because you can only be a master at like one or two things like at the same time. It's very tough.
Mhm.
So I tell people a lot, like, just because I went through it, I had to give up a lot of other opportunities to be the best in the world. And would I do it all over again? Absolutely. But there's only one person, in open bodybuilding that could be Mr. Olympia. So it's like we're all just trying so hard. So at the same time, a lot of people at the end of the day don't make a lot of money from this. So you have to really, like I said before, you got to really calculate like how much how much is your time really worth? How much is your effort really worth? If you could really apply the effort that would take to, like you said, to lose those pounds and structure your body a certain thing, you could be dedicating that to a business or to family planning, or whatever it is, and
Mhm.
be incredibly well at that. But I think some people do get sucked in
Yeah.
for a lifelong of hurt, because then now they're messing with their body's chemistry as well, and they're taking chances that they shouldn't be taking. And that's another element of the sport that doesn't get talked about enough. That causes a lot of mental health issues, because people in their mind think that I'm gonna be the best. It's like, I thought I was gonna be a pro basketball player. That shit didn't happen, and I had to learn really quick. Like, Phil, like, as much as you want it, as much as you believe, even if you would have made it, you wouldn't have been that great, because of just the competition, just because of the size, just because of certain things. And that doesn't mean you're terrible. It just means that you took it as far as you could take it, and there's other things you can try. And variety is a spice of life. So that's why I tell people, I'm like, there's so many other categories in our industry, but you don't always have to compete to try to turn pro. You can compete to say you did it and understand wait a minute, Ashley, we can learn how to look better, feel awesome, and have the confidence to do it again. Those are the three things. Those are the three most important things that we get to learn when we do decide to compete. And that was really my premise when I first started. I just wanted to look better, and I figured, well, if I look better, I'll probably feel better too, and I'll have control over my body. Like I'll understand like how to read labels, how to understand like what works for me as far as different types. We got like 30 different types of diets out there, you know what I mean? Like all these different trends, and be able to decipher like what's going to work well for myself. So it's a whirlwind of different things, but overall, I believe like the people in this industry are the pioneers for the world because we get to try everything and we're willing to go for it at full tilt. And for us to recognize that we can share our experiences with the world will actually help them out a lot faster, I think.
I agree with what you said too, is that this industry taught me how to make healthy food taste good. It taught me which foods to buy at the store. It taught me how to read labels. So like I'll read something now and I'm like, nope, I can't have that. I'm like, like sunflower oil and all this like extra crap that they have in here. I'm like, I can't eat that. But I also am like, I'm weighing food out. Like I still maintain a meal plan and I'm still working out because even though I'm in my 30s now, I'm like, I still want to look good. And as you mentioned, I want to feel good and I want to see where I can take my body. Like I'm not going to compete, but I know that I can still look good. I can still get a little bit of a six pack if I want,
That's right.
that. And I think that's what makes it fun is being able to challenge yourself. But as you mentioned too, you're going to have to make sacrifices. And I've told all my friends, don't invite me out to drink. Don't invite me to the club. I'm not going. I'm kind of over that scene anyway, but you
Right.
have to put your foot down. You have to set boundaries and say, hey, like don't invite me out to a nice ass restaurant to go get a fat piece of steak and mashed potatoes and all this fried food. I'm like, I'm not going. Like, don't ask me to go. Was that hard for you to have to make those sacrifices and have to cut those people off?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't even cutting them off. It was just telling them what my standards were and that they fell off.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, I'm with you. I was, right away, I realized, holy smokes, I can't be a rock star and a bodybuilder. Damn it. Like, like you just can't. You got to go out and, drink and party and hang out and do all this cool stuff. But you realize, like, I'm only hindering my progress. I'm wasting my money too. Like supplements ain't cheap. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm really making this a problem. So why not just honor my commitments and see where it takes me? And I always tell my friends, I'm like, dude, like it's not that I won't go out and have a cocktail. It's just that I won't probably go out all night doing it. And like you said, I mean, those friends will learn that she's got standards. They'll say initially, oh, she's uptight and this and that. It's like, nah, they'll say that stuff because they don't want to commit.
Yeah.
And then when you have the proof in your own performance, then they'll start realizing like, oh, well, it all meant something. It's interesting you say that because it's like, what would be the difference if someone said, well, I can't go out because I'm a computer programmer. I'm going to write some code that's going to change the world. And it probably happens to those same people like, oh man, fun.
Yeah.
Well, those are the Zuckerbergs of the world,
Yep.
Those are the jobs of the world. You know what I mean? So I think it comes down to just honoring your commitments, having standards. And when it comes to food and drink, it is an emotional thing. And it is a social thing too. I totally get it. But it's funny when going out, you realize like, man, they're just going. I mean, look, I'm not trying to judge folks because look, it's not like I haven't done it, but what's the purpose behind it all? Like, yeah, my wife and I, we talk about it. Like, yeah, you go to certain restaurants and certain experiences, but after that, you're like, oh, that's kind of like a one and done. We get a glass of wine at the house. I'd rather, you know what I mean, or invite some friends over.
Like, what are you bottling up? I feel like so many people like try to mask their pain with
Mhm.
drinking, right? I'm like, what are you celebrating? Like, why do you feel the
Yeah,
need to be intoxicated all the time?
yeah. All the time is definitely a sense of oof. That's a sense of pain that needs to be addressed.
Hmm.
But I will say, like with bodybuilding, it definitely helped save my 20s and early 30s because during that process you realize like this does not work. And I started seeing like some of my friends from college look older because of those years of going out.
Mm.
And I did learn like um going out ain't bad. It's just that what I do while I'm out that does.
Mm.
So if I was going out to just hang out with some friends or, want to go see some ladies and stuff, I don't have to get hammered. I get hold of water. There's no problem with that. There's no problem with that. But I was still the same guy as like after the club would be over, I'm like, okay, where can I go get a piece of chicken breast or steak or something like that and go to bed,
Yeah.
Or I'd have a protein shake like in the car. Like it's crazy, So those are those standards that we all have. Like some of us do that understand like we have greater purpose and those people do. They have a greater purpose of just getting hammered and go have fun. Hey, we're doing it. But to each his own. And that's just a true testament of your will, your discipline. So that's dope.
I love it. I bring my food with me everywhere I go. Every morning, bring my meals. I meal prep. I pack everything for work consistently. Was it hard for you? Like, I know you've mentioned you don't know if you're gonna go back on the stage again, but it's always still a possibility. Is it hard though, that transition of like not competing and not having to go to the gym every day and not having to, adhere to that standard of eating a certain way? Or do you still like kind of have a good schedule down to maintain?
It was definitely something I tried to see in 2018. I had I retore the incisions from the prior surgery of my hernia. So then I had to have another surgery in 2018. So in 2019, I took the whole year off and I didn't go to the Olympia. People were like, well, you're in shape. Like you could actually compete at the damn thing. I said, no, I want to know what it feels like, not even to get on the plane, to go watch it. And even my coach was like, bro, like, this is what we do. I was like, bro, what we do is we go win the damn thing. I'm not competing. I just want to chill at home.
Mhm.
I needed to understand how my mind and my body, like my emotions, what would I feel by just watching it on the computer like everybody else?
Mhm.
And then, come that next year, I was like, well, I guess I really do want to do this. So then I did it in 2020, and then I realized, like, well, maybe this is the last time I do it. And what's that going to feel like? Well, you kind of experienced part of that in 2019, and then it was just the transition of knowing that who do I identify with? Like, who am I? And then, going through that part, that's the part that currently has been the coolest story because it is filled with times of like, oh man, I could do this, and you realize like, but what joy is that going to bring? What other goals do you have that you could apply what you learned into that would give you a win every day? So, competing was only for 2 days a year. And I would, sacrifice my whole life and my family, for that. You can't do that forever. So I've had to like really take inventory, write those things down. And trust me, like every time I go into a gym and I touch a pair of dumbbells or a certain weight equipment and I get a certain pump, the thought goes through your head like one more time, one more time, one more time. But that's just what you created. That person never dies. The person I'm trying to create is the the man beyond the muscle. Because if God took the muscles away, then who am I really? I think that's the hardest part for most athletes. Is like we put our efforts into creating an identity,
Mm.
and we were rewarded for it by strangers and even loved ones. So when there is no more applause for that sport or that craft, you don't feel anything anymore from those same people. And they've now moved on to watching the other person who actually entertains them. And that could be very dark. And
Mhm.
and so I was challenged with that. And like I said, I mean, I still go through those moments, but the good thing is that I can write them down and understand that this happens to everyone. How you handle this is going to provide you better understanding so you can help other athletes, but also uh, create a better marriage and better business relationships with others. So yeah, I mean, it's called evolution.
Mhm.
And I think that something that, I value very much. And I mean, hell, like I barely train now. I train maybe once or twice a week, eat two, three, maybe three times a day, and I still maintain a pretty dope physique. And that just lets me know that I put in a lot of work. I put in over 20 years of hard labor, and this is where it gets you. So when I talk to younger people, I'm like, hey, do it this way. So then when you're my age, you may not be Mr. Olympia, but you're still gonna have the option to look pretty freaking awesome.
Mhm.
Because I know I look better than the majority of the people in the world. Still, like I understand that. But to know that you did it through a certain process of consistency and hard work, and understanding that practice doesn't make perfect, it just makes it permanent. If you use a better approach to your process, you can have perfect practice, better practices, and put yourself in a greater position to win. So yeah, I'm always going to I had to admit this not too long ago. I'm always going to have a moment where if I go to a bodybuilding show, I'm going to be like, like, man. And then I have to just smile and be like, yep. But
Well, we've seen it before. I've seen it like at certain NBA games or even like the All-Star game. A former player will pick up the ball, make it seem like he's going to shoot.
oh
Like,
yeah,
oh, no, I'm not gonna do all that. Like, I know there's that
yeah.
like itch to like, oh, I want to go back, but it's
Mhm.
also understanding that you gave it your all. You did. I mean, 7-time Olympia champion, like that is insane. So it's like, yeah, as much as you want to go back, it's like you did everything. You don't have anything to prove, at
Well,
that
that's
point,
the other
like
part.
you already did it.
Yeah. Well, that's the other part too. I was actually speaking with Arnold Schwarzenegger at his event this past March. On that Sunday, he was having lunch, and we had a nice chat. And one of his friends was like, "Man, Phil, you look great. Like, I'm sure you're barely." I was like, "Yeah, I'm barely doing anything." And he goes, "Yeah." And Arnold was like, "Yeah, he's him." but he said something really interesting. He was like, "It would just be for a headline for maybe a day or two. At this point in time in your life, it would really just be a headline, and that's it. Where you could be devoting more of your time to these, and just had a list of other things." And I was like, there's clues when the other people tell you things, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like I hadn't already thought about those same things, but to also hear it from someone who's obviously been there and done more than I have times 1,000, it makes you realize, like, yeah, takes one to know one. If I want to do this, I can do that. And he's literally saying it, and he's being honest. Because I saw even your eyes go like, you're right. It's just a headline.
Yeah.
You win the Olympics. So Phil Heath wins his 8th title. Okay. It's like, great. A week later, then it's like, is he going for 9? See how that goes?
Yep.
And I actually did have that game theory in my head, talk to Olympia, because at one point they were like, hey, we really like to see if this is interesting to you. And I was like, yeah, but it's going to be a 3-year commitment. And I think that there should be certain marketing toward it if we were going to do that. And we didn't see eye to eye on some of those things. And I thought, well, you're only thinking it in one dimension. I'm thinking about it like totally different. It has to service me in various areas. So in fact, like, they had the Olympia Masters division come back, and they said, oh yeah, over 45, blah, blah, blah. And then within 2 weeks they said, oh yeah, over 40. And I go, I know why you guys said over 40, because I'm 43.
Hmm.
So, I always say that there's 5% chance, but you know, I personally would love to see myself get in shape the way I want, like I always have. Not as big, because it's not necessary, and then just take it from there. And my main goal is to be more of a functional athlete. That's really my goal. I started off playing basketball, running track, all that cool stuff. I want to see what this body can do in other areas of life. And you're right, I have hit the pantheon of championships in this industry, and I don't think that'll ever really be duplicated the way I did it, because of who I went against. So
Mm.
I have a lot to pat myself on the back for, because I'm actually able to sit back and be like, man, like I prevented a lot of quality bodybuilders from winning an Olympia. and I beat a lot of great guys for over 10 plus years. So, I have like a list of people and I ain't gonna lie, like I have a list of people that I'm like, wow, I beat Jay Cutler, I beat Dennis Wolf, I beat Kai Green, I beat Dexter Jackson, I beat, all these guys. These are people that, like, when I meet fans, they may not be a Phil Heath fan, but they're fans of these guys too. And I'm a fan of them. So I'm like, wow, like there's honor within that. And I know that in other sports, legacies are always critiqued and compared to who they went against, not just who, like, let's be honest, it's who you went against. Who did you fight? Who did you beat to become that and maintain that? Because if you beat a bunch of scrubs, it doesn't really matter. So I know I didn't beat no scrubs. They're freaking top notch, and they're all fighters, and they're badasses. So I'm very honored to have those moments. So then it is time to kind of like maybe just say goodbye to all of that and say hello to what lies ahead.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what lies ahead for you? What are some of your biggest goals, and what are some things that you're trying to step into, whether it's a business or, like you said, helping other people who want to excel at this sport as well?
Well, everything within my ecosystem currently revolves around health and wellness. So creating a supplement range, that's already been done. That's going to be coming out probably sometime later this year. So we have that. In addition to doing mastermind courses, talking about different areas of life with people in the fitness industry that they don't think about. Like, do the majority of the people that we even follow online even own a piece of intellectual property? Probably not. They don't even own their name. So talking about the steps that I did just to own those things, because when you have trademarks, you have IP, you then get with companies who you can license those things to. What does that look like? What does it mean to pay less taxes? How does that work? Life insurance. Hello, we got people doing GoFundMe's if, God forbid, something happens. Do you understand how to go about those things and structure your LLCs accordingly to where you could be protected? And instead of buying a bunch of Jordans and stuff like that, do you have a war fund for legal if someone were to come after your business or whatever? Like all these different things. Those are things that I know I can help people in the industry, because needless to say, if you sit down with a lot of them, they're not going to have this type of 30-second conversation about, like, what do they own? They have a website and an app. Okay. What do you have as a moat that can protect all of it? How do you structure these things? Who have you hired to do these things? That's where I come in and say, hey guys, I've been through it all. And here's what I did wrong. And here's what I did right. And I've had success for 20 plus years. So those are those things. And then, of course, I have a documentary that's actually being, it's already final. It's actually being picked up by a Hollywood studio. Can't tell you who, but it's big. But it's also being co-produced by Danny Garcia and Dwayne Johnson of Seven Bucks Productions. So that's obviously really cool. And that's going to lead into a lot of other dominoes that are going to trickle around. So I'm very, very excited. But the main goal is to obviously keep myself involved in the world of health and fitness. When we think of health and fitness right now, I don't think we think of one person right now. When I was a kid, we used to think about like maybe a Bo Jackson or Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jerry Rice, like Hulk Hogan, like a massive person. It was always Arnold. We don't think about that person right now. When you talk about like who's the pioneer, like who's the ambassador, there is none.
No. I mean, I know doctors that I follow, but I don't really think there's like an athlete that really stands out to me in that aspect that's like truly healthy. I know people who work with athletes, like there's a lot of doctors I follow on social media who talk about blood work and talk about certain genes and all of that, but athletes, no.
No. So 10, 20 years ago, you would be able to answer this question. And I feel like right now we don't. And I recognize that, and I say, why is that? Maybe because the people who have that ability aren't doing enough. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make myself be known as that person. I've won as just as much as Arnold. I've traveled the world and have my picture around different gyms and murals around the world, and I've impacted and printed positivity in other people's lives. I want to now just not make that about myself. I'm going to make it about everybody else. How do I do that? Well, I can create products and services that can actually make them healthier,
Mhm.
and to spread the positivity and encouragement, knowing that like, hey, I'm not perfect. I didn't come from much either. And I came from a small area in Seattle, Washington, South Seattle, Rainier Beach High School, man. That's ghetto as hell, but we put out a lot of dope ass dudes. You know a lot of them, in the NBA. And we all had, and I laugh because we had that chip on our shoulder from Nate Robinson to Jamal Crawford to DeJounte Murray. We all had that swagger. Like, we're just different.
Mhm.
And, I just want to be able to be a man of contribution and using my talents and skills to contribute. And I know I can in the health and fitness space because they know that I'm tried and true. There's no fake over here. If I tell you something, it's because I actually did it. And I did it at the highest level, and you can't refute it. You just can't. So it's not an arrogance with it. It's a pride with it. It's a passion with it. And in order for me to inspire other people to use their gift, I got to use mine. So yeah, with not just the supplements, clothing, the masterminds, talking to kids, visiting, I do a lot with the US military as well. I travel around the world through the USO. I've done that for over 15 years. I continue to do that. COVID kind of wiped that out. But just being a part of a lot of cool things to show love and respect for people that, care about us. And I just want to be that advocate, for people with mental health as well. Because I also had my own struggles. And in my documentary, I kind of talk about my own struggle with that and how I overcame it and how I honored myself. And, there's a lot of cool things on the horizon, but I just continue to just want to, live my best life and understand that the unknown still is upon me.
Mhm.
But I champion through it. I champion through it all. And that's what people need to know, is that you can champion yourself through life. But you can't just talk about it. You gotta freaking be about it. You can't just be in here. You gotta be in here. You gotta know here. And then you gotta go. And then you can't worry about what other people have to say. And you gotta be misunderstood. You gotta be misunderstood. And that's the hardest part, is that, whew, that's the hardest part. It's like what the late Nipsey Hussle said, like, my circle got smaller, everybody can't go.
Mhm.
Everybody can't go with you, Ashley.
Nope.
Can't go to where you're going. They cannot go. They will not go. They'll pull you down because of their own limiting beliefs. So you just have to focus, and like I said, it's easier said than done. So, I just want to continue to be that positive person and show them that there's a reason to fight for what they want.
I love it. And I already know I'm so excited to see the documentary, and I already know you're going to be doing a lot more. I kind of had a little hint of what you said. I'm like, I can kind of guess what he's probably going for next, which I'm super excited for. I think you're going to be great. One more question for you. This has gone on for an hour, and I feel like I can go for another 2 hours to just talk, because there's so many things I would like to even talk about basketball and everything else. But I just wanted to know how you define success and what it means for you.
The ability to harness and to leverage every bit of pain you have. You gotta endure a lot, but you gotta use it and have the strength and the mental fortitude to just take that step forward until you meet your future version of self, until you meet that best version of self. That's the goal, and you can't give up. And trust me, I've had many times where you're pounding the pavement, but that's what this life experience is about. It's not about blending in all the time. It's about standing out. And if you can get out of your way of just blending in with dumbasses, blending in with people that have low standards, and being willing to be alone and understand that, yeah, success is like that. Success has time alone, because there's usually only one person at the top. But I can tell you what, it's a pretty badass view up there. And it's worth it. It's worth trying. You'll learn a lot of things and you'll meet a lot of people. And maybe you just happen to encourage somebody else along the way to do the same. That to me is success, to live out your dreams and inspire other people to live out theirs.
I love it. Is there anything else that I missed in this interview that you wanted to talk about, or anything about yourself, or anything exciting, or did I pretty much get everything we needed to get?
You nailed it for this time. I mean, yeah, we have to talk about hoops another time, but
I
yeah,
know.
I appreciate it. My wife was like, reminder that like, cause she's friends with Courtney as well. So it's like, yeah, she's like, yeah, I know who Ashley is. She's like, yeah, we all like this. So it's like a very small community, but yet,
Yeah.
big one as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I just want to say thanks.
Thank
This is
you.
dope. And, all the best with what you got going on. I know you got a lot going on as well, but always keep fighting a good fight. But yeah, I look forward to doing this again another time. And I think once this documentary comes out, which happened to receive an award recently at the Florence Film Festival, so it's getting a lot of traction. So anybody that wants to see our director Brett Harvey and our co-producer Adam Scorgi's work, they can look up Score SCOREG Productions, as they've had a ton of different documentaries from Michael Bisping's doc, the Donovan Bailey Experience, Making Coco with Grant Fuhr, the famous hockey goalie, and a lot more. One Inmate One with Danny Trejo, all have done great success. They're just filming one with Dolph Lundgren right now. So I'm in great company, obviously with Danny and DJ as well, because DJ is actually in the doc, so it's like freaking dope. So I am very happy, and I can't wait for everybody to see it.
Well, same here. I can't wait, and I know we'll definitely have to do another follow-up interview once that comes out. But again, thank you so much for your time. I know you're so busy. You could be anywhere in the world right now, and you decided to come here and talk with me on my show. So again, super appreciated, and best of luck to you as well.